So today on the Impact Sessions podcast, I'm delighted to have Chris Wilson with me. Chris and I go back a long way from when he was, he was a general manager of a big hotel group in York when I first met him a number of years ago. He's now managing director of Adamo Business Consultants and has been doing this kind of work for a number of years. So we're going to talk today about driving and not reacting to business sales potential. So welcome to the Impact Sessions, Chris.
Hi, Nick.
Good to see you. And you, mate, and you. As I say, I've met you years ago when you were working in the hotel and hospitality sector. How long have you been doing what you do in terms of sort of the sales development side of things? I'm trying to remember how many years you've been sort of working for yourself in this area.
Well, 20 years. I came to York
in
1998 and became self-employed to 2002. But, you know, my sales background goes way back to my hotel days. That's my first job in the hotel, was a business development manager.
Yeah.
And I did that in Northampton, Gateshead, Newcastle, and then came to York. And York is such a commercial city. Sales was a really important part of that mix there in terms of running a business. So
2002. Oh, we're all getting
older. Yeah, well, I know.
We're all getting older. Yeah, we are. Well, listen, great to have you along. You and I sort of share the love and passion for sales, and we're in the same space to a certain extent. But I think we also, complement each other in terms of what we're trying to do. So, what I'd like to think, it's fair to say that we both love sales and we both actually enjoy the sales environment. But I want to explore your view on why so many businesses see sales as a real challenge. So, why do they not seem to enjoy sales or particularly embrace the sales culture? Because we do. But we see people who don't. Why is that? What do you reckon?
I guess it comes down to people not necessarily viewing us as a profession. From a small business perspective, you start off a great company, you've got some great ideas or a niche concept, and the first thing people tell you to do is go and get legal advice and go and get an accountant, and you haven't even got any sales. But the business entrepreneur, they sort of start to try and do it themselves. And the thing is, it's like trying to do anything. The brain doesn't like something uncomfortable. It likes to exist in habit. What are we now? Second week in February, first week in February, and I'm sure everybody had this really big, passionate goal to lose weight, drink less, exercise more in January.
Join the gym.
Yeah, all those things. And we're probably now breaking that commitment. And I think from a business owner's perspective, entrepreneurs tackling sales, it takes them out of the comfort zone. They're brilliant exponents of their trade or their profession, and they get into the sales environment and the brain just says, I am not happy with this environment. And I guess it takes them out of the secure comfort zone. And sales is about being in a place where you're comfortable. As soon as you expose that aspect of discomfort, people will spot that or hear it, and you have really lost the opportunity, not to drive the sales process, but just be in control of it.
Yeah, I guess that's the credibility factor. If you don't look like you believe it, then your potential customer will certainly see that you don't believe it. So why should they believe whatever you're selling, service, product, whatever it might be, I guess?
Yeah, and the example, I think, in everybody's head is the school disco, and all the girls lined up on the left-hand side and the boys, and the first person to try it was the first person that was also going to get knocked down in flames. And of course, that fear of rejection is within all of us in a sales aspect, whether it be picking up the phone or going to the networking meeting.
Yeah.
You just don't want to have somebody say no.
Yeah.
But no's are everywhere in business, and it's about how you control your mindset to move past the no and keep looking for the yes.
Well, we've talked about driving, not reacting to business sales potential. So if you're driving business sales potential, you sort of have to encourage the no's, because you have to understand why people may not buy from you as well as why they might, don't you? It's both sides of the coin.
Yeah, everybody has to listen, and I think we'll probably talk about that later. And the sales process isn't governed by me or you as a salesperson. It's about the customer and listening and searching for signals that then allows you to talk about what you want to talk about. But the dangerous sales process is the one that knows what they want to say and are waiting for the opportunity to speak about what they've already decided to speak about, as opposed to listening and then responding to what the person has asked you to do.
Well, that's why a preordained kind of pitch presentation doesn't always work unless you've done your homework really well. If you're just doing a pitch to a potential client, which is telling them all about how good you are and what you do and how great you are, the chances of that hitting the spot are pretty slim, aren't they? You can only design and create something of interest or think about something of interest after you understand what the pressure points are and what the customer's trying to solve and all that kind of stuff. So going in, like you say, with a preordained approach is always likely to be more, high risk and subject to failure, I suspect.
Well, I think so. But equally, if you're going to a network environment, you might want to have your elevator pitch or the words that speak resonance with what you're wanting to talk about. But I always talk about car salesmen. The great car salesmen ask you questions. What was your last car? What are you going to do with it? Have you got a dog? Have you got 2 kids? Do you like speed? Do you like colour? Do you like power? Do you like energy? And of course, all they're doing is deciding which car they're going to show you in the car showroom, as opposed to walking you around 500 cars, working out which one's going to be relevant to you. And I think we could learn a lot from that sort of front-facing sales aspect in the trenches, so to speak, and trying to understand how to talk to customers, ask open questions, which then allows you to open up your, whether it be rehearsed pitches, but you're only talking about the pitch that is relevant to the customer's needs, as opposed to just hitting them with everything and anything.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned, like you say, the transferable skills of the cutting edge, old style salesperson, like you say, car sales typically is seen as that. Some of the transferable skills are still relevant, aren't they? Whether you're selling, services or whether you're selling products, whether you're selling, online, the principles of understanding your customer requirements and fine tuning your offer towards them are much maligned, I think, and much underused in some cases. So, okay. I like strategy. I like the fact that you mentioned earlier that sales is a profession, because those who work in sales are listening to this podcast now, are hopefully jumping up and standing up proudly and saying, yes, it is a profession. But a lot of people don't understand that. But also, it's also a strategic part of a business. So when it comes to a business in terms of thinking about a sales strategy, what do you think the important factors are they should be considering first and foremost?
Well, there's a person that I was on your website this morning, and you reference Simon Sinek a lot.
Yes.
And I'm also a great exponent of his video, Why. And if you haven't watched it, then please go and find it. It's universally available. And if you've watched it, watch it again. Because I
think it's called The Golden Circle.
The Golden Circle.
Yeah, that's right.
It is. Yeah. It's finding out why. We all know what it is we do, and we all know how we should do it. But the key thing is why. And is it about the customer's why, or is it about our why? And when the moments of truth happen, if you haven't got that strategic alignment to what are you really trying to achieve, then I think the sales process or the customer experience will just leap out and say, that was wrong. And the other exponent, I guess, is Tony Robbins. He talks about why we do what we do. And if you have time, go and find, again, that TED Talk. Every business, we all know why we do stuff. And it's about translating from the sales director or the managing director or the entrepreneur, this is what's important to us. And whether it be the bus driver, the cab driver, the waitress, the online creative director, they all need to be delivering to the why.
Okay. I am a big exponent of that. And Simon Sinek's a particular person. I do enjoy some of his content. He's quite controversial in some areas, and he's quite sort of straightforward and black and white in others. So I think he's a guy to follow, certainly. Competitive environments exist all around us. Apart from if you've got the sort of cure for cancer and you're the only one doing it, then that's a nice place to be from a business perspective. Most businesses don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a competitive world. They exist in an environment where, they are one of a Me Too provider. So what advice would you give to a business in terms of standing out from the crowd when it comes to either launching a business in a packed environment or growing a business in a competitive world? What kind of things would you suggest that they need to do to be stand out?
Okay, I guess this also links to strategy, is that before you embark on telling people about what you do, most marketing people talk about having a SWOT analysis, and that's a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats perspective. And where you are there in terms of the niche or the standout or the competitor is what strengths do you have? What weaknesses are there? What opportunities exist in the marketplace? Is your niche a genuine opportunity, or is it just something that you dreamt up in a moment of drunkenness on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And equally, who are out there also threatening you, and what are the competitors doing? What are their price points? What are their unique selling points? And now you've kind of got an idea about who the market is, then it defines whether or not you are a Me Too business or not. The thing that I sometimes get very annoyed about when we're working with a new customer is I talk to them and tell me about your business. And they say, oh, we've got these great unique selling points. We've got these great people. We've got this great service delivery. We've got a great location. And I question to say, well, what is it that's unique about that?
Yeah.
And those may well be selling points, which are important to their business, but they're not unique.
No, nobody buys that either. Do they? I'm about to create a piece of content called "Is My Baby Ugly?" And it's based upon business owners doing just that, Chris. Basically, nobody ever phones up and says, deal with us, we don't know what we're doing, deal with us, we don't care about service, deal with us, we're particularly unskilled. Skills, experience, service, they're all given, aren't they? So they don't do enough. So when I go into an organisation and somebody gives me those kind of, spiels off those reasons why, tell me about your business, I'll say, nobody cares, which is like saying that your baby's ugly. If you sweated blood, sweat and tears into setting up a business and growing a business, and somebody comes in from the outside world and goes, yeah, doesn't matter, nobody cares. So this little piece of content's about, is my baby ugly, and just getting people to think about that. So I'm glad you've touched on that as a thought process. People just don't do enough around standing out from the competition. Everyone's got great customer service. Everyone's got, excellent staff. Everyone's got a Me Too, can-do culture. So that's not enough, is it?
It's not. And also test out your words on others, because you get so entrenched in the detail when you're starting or launching a new product, and you become familiar with jargon, you use terminology that nobody else understands, or particularly in a technical environment, you are using phraseology that simply just doesn't cut it when you're trying to translate that to somebody to talk about features and benefits. And go and get a professional copywriter. Just deal with the people that will be able to translate your thoughts into words that actually mean something in terms of the customers that you're talking to. And do focus groups. Ask customers, look, this is our website. What does it tell you? Does it tell you that we're arrogant, middle-aged, suited men, if that's what you're trying to put across? Or do you want to be totalitarian to all kinds of marketplaces? Yeah. And words have power, and words will mean things to people. But never, ever rest on your laurels thinking that you are the person that can solve everybody else's solutions, because there are other people out there that will tell you quite differently.
You're much better being niche and expert than generalist and mass market, though, surely, aren't you? Because these days, don't people value the expertise and nicheness more? Is that fair?
Well, you can be niche and expert, but you should also never be niche, expert and complacent, because there's always somebody looking around the corner, seeing what you're doing or developing what you've done and actually put another level of bells and whistles on it. So yes, it would be nice to be niche and expert, but you can be niche and expert and still not actually be able to translate that message to market through ineffective sales. I have worked with some customers and some service providers in the software market particularly who have a great offer, and yet their website or their message to market is just simply too complicated.
Yeah.
And they're so focused on the sell, they're so focused on the demo, they're so focused on trying to move the customer along in their timeframes, they actually begin to annoy the prospect. And I think the key thing in the sales marketplace, if anybody's talking about strategy, is to go at the pace of the customer. Always try to move forward to the next base, but the next base might just be talking about the American football, might be talking about the cricket, might be talking about the Olympics, might be talking about the impact of a virus on the UK and how's that. But it doesn't have to be about the sales process. It's just about engaging and knowing that you're a person that they can trust and that you're not there just to try to hammer them down into a diary appointment next Thursday at 9:00.
I mean, the traditional sales route and sales processes, I guess, it starts with prospect, engage, meet, pitch, proposal, negotiate, close, all that kind of stuff. It's quite traditional, but that, like you say, I quite enjoyed that response there in terms of saying go at the customer's pace, because a lot of salespeople get a really bad rap, don't they, for being, they don't listen or they don't pay respect to the customer. They're just following a process, and that process is driven by people maybe above them, the sales director or the managing director, going, how many of those have you done? How many of these have you done? How many of those have you done? Whatever that might be, phone calls, meetings, Skype calls, pitches, etc. And actually, it's not necessarily about the volume in a lot of cases. It's about the quality and the quality of that engagement piece, isn't it?
It is. It's also about, I guess, the amount of revenue attached to each particular sale. And the larger the sale, the more focused and the more time I think you should spend on it. And I know in some environments, their account managers are maybe only chasing 3, 4, 5 deals per year because there's such big numbers. And in that context, you can really begin to build a forensic picture about your prospect. Where do they shop? What meetings are they going to? Who do they network with? And you begin to like their LinkedIn comments, and you suddenly almost become stealth-like.
Yeah.
But you're in their faces and you're in their audience all the time, and therefore you almost become a trusted friend. And then when the telephone call happens or the meeting call happens, it's something that they're almost expecting, as opposed to something that's cold or not welcome.
Okay, I mean that's great advice anyway, because it is about awareness raising, isn't it? The chances of you making a sale in whatever industry you're in with a first engagement, so whether it's a reach out through LinkedIn, which you shouldn't be selling on anyway, or a phone call or whatever, a networking, the chance of getting a sale from the first engagement pretty slim. It's all about that relationship build. It's all about understanding, isn't it? The steps that will build that trust and will build that rapport, will build that opportunity so that you're elevated in their mind. It's amazing the amount of people who say, oh, I was just thinking about you, but the day after you've been to see them or the day after you've sent them something, I was just thinking about you. Really? Yeah, you were thinking about me because we, in some way, engineered you to think about me because I was in your thought process, be something active I did. So whether it's say a piece of content or a comment on your own LinkedIn post, or whether I've been to see you or whatever, it's not coincidental, that is it? No,
and I think that point you make about the sale is never going to be the first sale. We would be naive to think this. Sometimes it does happen.
Oh, yeah.
You happen to hit the right call or the right networking meeting. You just happen to be serendipitously in the right place, and it happens. It's very, very, very rare.
Yeah.
And I think that the salesperson that is under the cosh from the CEO or the director to hit the numbers, here's the KPI, how many meetings, how many turn-ups have you had, how many demos converted to onboarding, it's a flawed process because it's about numbers and metrics as opposed to deals converted and money in the till.
Yeah.
And there are instances now where sales is instant. A lot of people in the consumer world on a retail environment will actually have already made a decision when they hit the website that they're going to pursue this transaction from click to basket checkout.
Yeah. Because
of the way they've already determined their mindset about the brand, the values, the experience. And you have absolutely no involvement in that sales process. And that's where it comes down to delivery and consistency by the team.
Yeah.
And part of things that I would say to everybody in sales, it's not the sales manager's job to keep the till turning. It's about everybody's job to give them enough reason to be confident about the fact that they can sell, and then the operations team will deliver consistently.
I ask the question when I'm working with sales teams. I'll say, do you have a sales prevention department in your organisation? And invariably they do. And invariably, without having a go at accounts, it's often accounts. They'll say accounts might put a customer on stop without telling me. Yeah. So my customer who I'm building relationships with has been put on stop because computer says put them on stop. No dialogue, no communication internally, and therefore I'm embarrassed and it's difficult and all those kind of things. Or it might be dispatch or delivery. So you might be the best at selling that you can be. The customer's loving and trusting your brand and your product, and it's thrown onto the back of a courier van. It arrives in a broken box, and it just doesn't look great and feel great. So there's always an area where people can be influenced by the brand, the experience, and if you've got a sales prevention office in your department, in your organisation, if you're listening, you need to address the sales prevention team, because they are, taking money out the till. It's everybody's responsibility, as Chris has said there.
Without a doubt. And sometimes you call them moments of truth. Service recovery, you're only as good as the weakest link in your team, is that old adage that applies. And it's so critical in this world, because the bad news spreads very, very quickly, whether it be through social media, through online reviews. There is no way to hide. If you are a service delivery person involving customers with Google reviews or Trustpilot, there is nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing for the people that are fantastic, but it's a perilous journey for anybody that has got people in their teams that are out to get them, because there is, it's there. You read the review and click, move on. Thank you very much.
You have to up your game across the entire board, don't you? Really?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about businesses that I've been in over the years. I'm sure you have as well. The sort of flit from one sales idea to another and often back again. What advice would you give to a business seeking to be more productive and effective in their sales activity? You know, the ones who go, oh, I had an idea, where the sales manager or sales director comes in, they go, oh, I've had an idea, we should target that sector, or, oh, this product should go out. These people who jump around, how would you advise them to be more effective and productive?
Okay, well, I guess you've started the podcast talking about strategy, and there's a couple of books I go to, and Chet Holmes is a really good author. He's written The Ultimate Sales Machine. And I think
I had that in an audio book actually, and it's a hell of a long audio book, but it's a great series. It was a series on, it's good. It's a bit. I don't want to knock my internationalist. It's a bit American, but the principles transfer really well, don't they?
Well, yeah, it's a bit American, but of course the message in there is that we're all salespeople,
yes,
but we're all different types of salespeople. And I think the bit that he talks about is that we're 90% tactical salespeople, 9% strategic, and only 1% of us can cross across the two. So when we're flip-flopping all around the place, the reason is because often we're making tactical decisions about sales, reacting to what is being fed to us according to the environment that we're in. And sometimes you make silly decisions based on reacting and you lose sight of the strategy.
Yeah.
And because so many people in sales are short term, we've got to do this, the KPIs aren't stacking up, the numbers aren't hitting the metrics, we start to make knee-jerk reactions, or we suddenly turn a face and abandon what we thought was working and try something else. And like I said to you before, the brain loves to have both habit and change. And when it goes into change, it's a nice environment for the brain to be in for a while, but after a while, it kind of gets fed up with that and wants to get back to the habit again. So overall, I think it's just about trying to be strategic. Where are we trying to drive the bus? Why have we suddenly turned it round? Because it was more attractive to go left than it was right. Actually, we always said we were going to go in that direction, and keep focus of the strategy, I think, is the important point in terms of why do we flip-flop.
Okay, that's a good... I like that, and I like the fact that it's probably transferable to the next piece, which is maybe a little bit about staff. Sales staff have a very potentially transient lifestyle, from company to company. I particularly don't like to see a very busy CV if someone's applying for a sales job. 18 months here, 9 months there, 12 months, 2 years. So I always think, well, there's a reason for that, and despite whatever they're going to tell me in the interview, it's usually because they've been found out, rather than the fact that they chose to move for, developmental reasons or whatever it might be. There are some reasons why people have got short lifespans in sales. But why do you think businesses don't continue to invest in their salespeople beyond a certain, short-termism? They give them 3 months, they go, are you going to make it in 3 months? You wouldn't say that to a doctor or a dentist or a solicitor, would you? Why is sales like that? Why is sales so cutthroat when it comes to the expectations on the performance?
Well, sometimes it's about the churn, in that when you start getting good at sales, you are automatically levitated into a higher responsibility position, and then you become suddenly sales manager, and before you know it, you're the regional area manager controlling lots of people. And actually, you never really wanted to be a people manager. You wanted to just hit the commission, hit the number, drive home in the car, and celebrate on a Friday night with the lads.
Yeah.
That was why we got into sales in the first place.
Yeah.
And actually, what sometimes happens in businesses is that we accelerate people's careers for the wrong reason, and we develop people into things that they never wanted to be, which was a manager controlling people and emotions and environment.
And the skill sets are massively different, aren't they, between that and being, if you like, the old style sales executive, sales representative, the person hitting the numbers, hitting the KPIs, and in some ways selfishly looking after their own sales pipeline. massively different skill set to being a sales manager and a regional sales manager and divisional manager. Suddenly you've got all these people to look after.
Well, it's an admin-focused role. There's lots of forms to fill in. There's lots of responsibilities. And this is the salesperson's nightmare. They don't like admin. They don't like to be accountable for things. They just want to hit the phone, have the meeting, make the doorstep sale, celebrate and move on.
Yeah.
And perhaps I'm not maybe answering your full question, but the reason why perhaps people are allowed to stay in places and then they move around is because the talent that is actually there or was there has now been moved on to another place. I think if I find somebody's CV that is moving around a lot, sometimes there is a genuine reason for it. But yeah, you're right. You will normally find out that there's something that's gone wrong, or they didn't fit, the culture wasn't right, or they just get stale. And the mental health aspect of an individual, I was listening to Lorna's podcast this morning, I think it's been recently with you, and it's great to see people really talking about mental health and resilience. And the sales game is a very, very hard place to work. You have to be tough, you have rejection, people don't want to talk to you, whether it be online, email, and obviously with the social aspect now of social media, people, the keyboard bullies, can make it a very horrible place to be for people in that marketplace as well. So sometimes salespeople just literally burn out and they go on to the next opportunity thinking that they've made a mistake and the next place is going to be really good for them. But underneath all of that, there's actually some psychological stuff in their brains, perhaps, that they just need to talk about, whether it be through a coach, a mentor, a friend, and just say, do you know what? I'm actually not willing, or I'm scared to pick up the phone. I'm actually going to a networking meeting. My introverted self is coming out and I don't want to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And part of my thought process within my head is it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not want to do the call, but when it becomes not okay to be not okay, then you have something there that you need to share with somebody else.
And I think that's the key is as you said on an earlier podcast with Lorna Feeney, we were talking about that kind of mental health awareness, resilience, overall well-being, really. And I think sales is probably one of the most pressured jobs in a business environment, because everybody looks at the salespeople and say, are you paying our wages next month? Are you bringing the business in that's going to help us to deliver and keep the guys in the operations and keep the manufacturing suite open and all that kind of thing? So there's an awful lot of, but there's still a lot of, I don't know, the word bullying is probably wrong. There's still a lot of harassment in old style sales environments, which I don't like to see, where you've got a hierarchy and they come to a sales meeting every month and there's a bit of an embarrassment about your figures and it's public shaming and stuff. I really hate to see that in a sales environment. I think the world has changed and sales teams need to change and sales management needs to change to reflect some of those sort of impacts that we've talked about, really, and be a bit more aware of the impact of the Friday afternoon, you haven't hit your figures, but I'm going to tell you haven't hit your figures in front of everybody else. And it's clearly aware that you haven't hit your figures. So, why do I need to shame you in front of people? And what's the impact of that?
I think also there is this aspect of salespeople are still labelled as not as professional as they possibly could be. And in a transaction analysis perspective of science, there's this parent-child relationship whereby we are still, as salespeople, perhaps considered the rebellious child or the child, and the customer then becomes the parent, and they have this all autocratic demeanor, and we as the salesperson come across as submissive or apologetic, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Well, let's just talk about it as an adult fashion. I have something to talk to you that I think is of benefit to you. I wouldn't be ringing you otherwise. And hopefully, Mr. Adult, you're going to give me the respect and the time to allow me to talk to you in a fashion that is an adult fashion. And when we have this dysfunctional relationship between parent and child, the prospector starts to try to be a little bit too belligerent or a little bit rude or combative, and it again becomes a breakdown of environment that is not good to be seen, whether it be face to face or networking, and even in a internal position where the salesperson is then being pressured by their line manager to deliver, and it's this mismatch between child and parent, and the line manager is becoming the parent saying you must deliver on this, and I'm going to threaten you with this if you don't do that. And of course, people don't like that. We don't like it as children. We don't like it as adult, as parents. We just need to be like treated with more respect, I think.
Okay, no worries. Let's go old school. In these days of social selling and, relationship building and social media, etc., you and I are both big advocates of the telephone still, aren't we?
Yes.
that thing that rings, that the old style ones where you had to turn the numbers round, etc. But these days you press buttons, etc., that kind of thing. But in 2020, is the telephone more redundant in terms of people's use of it? I don't like the word cold calling because that doesn't exist anymore with research and things. But is the telephone becoming more and more redundant in the sales process?
Well, I think if it's a cold call, as you've said there, it is redundant, and unfortunately, it still happens. I mean, I received a call yesterday, and the opening line was, "Can I talk to the manager, please?"
Oh, really? Hang on.
No.
Let me explore that. Who the hell in 2020 hasn't got the time, energy, focus, or resources to find out who the hell is the manager, managing director, owner, or whatever of Adamo Business Consultants?
Well,
it's public domain information.
But it's not his or her fault, is it? Really, it's down to the fact that somebody said, "There's your list. Off you go. See what you can do."
Yeah,
and it's down to the cultural aspect of they're either bored or they've got nothing to do, and they're given this poor soul, whether it be young, old, medium-aged, this job of ringing these prospects, and they've got absolutely no background to it. And it's a despicable situation to be in. And if you are in receipt of one of those calls, please be as polite as you can be to the person that's making the call, because it's not really their fault. They've just been given a task to do. But yes, I mean, in terms of you, Nick, I can go on your website, I can find your email, I can find your LinkedIn address, I can find your mobile number ends in 495, your landline ends in 384. I know you were born in May. I know in 2 years' time you've got quite a big milestone.
Oh, thanks for that, mate.
But it's in the public domain, all those things. And I now know that I might be wanting to talk to you in May because it's your birthday and I've suddenly got something to talk to you about. So, yes.
It's lazy though, isn't it? Cold calling from a list is lazy. And I've got a particular client who works in one sector that shall remain nameless, but their sales director keeps saying, "Can we do some cold call training?" And I say, "No." "Oh, why not?" "Because I don't do cold call training. I don't teach people how to read a directory from A to Z, start at Aardvark Services and finish at Mr. Zakynthos. I teach people how to research and develop understanding. And I think do a bit of a deep dive before you make the call, so your chances of success are massively improved. I would much rather make 8 or 10 high quality, high research calls to people who want to take those calls than 50 or 60 calls to people on a A, B, A, C, D, E, F, G call list. It just doesn't make any sense these days to me at all. So, but the telephone's still an important factor in being able to use that phone as a sales tool, isn't it?
I believe so. It's still the only mechanism, apart from a face-to-face meeting or a Skype, where you can ask a question and they can give you a response. And then based on the response, you can then continue to keep the conversation moving forward. And if you've got a very good manner that uses open and powerful questions, it's almost a game of tennis. They offer you a nice ball in the middle of the court and you hit it back to them nice and gently. Yeah. And as soon as you open up with a question that allows them to deliver an ace straight down the middle, you're out of the game. Yeah. But it's still the only mechanism that's fairly cheap to do, let's be honest, to be able to talk to a prospect, deliver what it is you're trying to work with them on, and then understand where their buying cycle is and what the timeframes are before we can move it along to the next opportunity. Or just understand that they're not in the marketplace right now. Okay, it's not right now. Is that a now, not never? Or is that a now, just not now?
Yeah. I think we're a long way from the salesperson using the telephone being replaced by AI anytime soon, aren't we? Really, it's
Well, there are some pretty good robots out there though who can do it, and I have had taken some of those calls.
Have you?
Yeah, it's frightening when you actually understand that you are talking to a robot about a customer service engagement through a big call center, and it's just slightly wrong in terms of the pace or the response, but there are some very, very good systems out there, and also some very good ways of copying your voice and then re-engaging that through. Just be careful in terms of cybercrime. Yeah. there are some really, I don't want to scare people, but there's some very, very good voice recognition software systems that can take your voice and then repeat that and then make a call to you, pretending I am Nick Bramley.
Using algorithm stuff to create the sort of...
here's my bank account. Could you just deposit that payment into this bank account instead of the other? So just be careful.
Okay. Last couple of questions. Sales pipeline. It's about managing activity at the top and output at the bottom. How do you advise businesses to build and manage an effective sales pipeline or sales funnel? What tips would you have around sort of managing that data and the opportunity and information?
Well, you've got to have some kind of system, and there are some very, very good CRM systems out there, a customer relationship management tool, but it could just be something as simple as an Excel file that just says, date called, next call, what's the reason? But please invest in some kind of system. And then secondly, the prospects, I think, need to be categorized according to where they sit in the funnel. And the third thing, I think, is to talk about the touch points you'll use to try to draw them down the funnel. And that is different for every single business. It could be phone, it could be email, it could be text, it could be networking, it could be events, it could be SEO, any manner of things. But appreciate that every customer will move down the funnel in their own time. And if you try to move them down the funnel too quickly, they'll jump out. So I think that's my overall comment on that. But I think equally, we must not forget that the clients that we attracted and pulled through the funnel are the most important people sometimes, because it's Pareto law. 20% of your customers will probably deliver 80% of your revenue. And it's so much easier to continue to get revenue or more revenue and upspend from the people that are already through the pipe. And we're always looking for the next quick sale. And I would urge any business to continue to think about how are we looking after the people that we've already got on the funnel. Because unfortunately, there's people like you and me that are trying to coax them out of one business and bring them into another. So I talked about complacency, and I think that's really, really important, that you empower all of your team to be customer service kings, moments of truth recovery people, customer experience advocates, and make sure that the customers have nowhere else to go other than staying in your business.
And they actually enjoy the experience of nowhere else to go because they're loyal to you, your brand, your service delivery, your team, etc., etc. Okay. One last tip there. I like to finish the podcast where I can with a bit of a golden thread or a golden bullet. What would be the one tip you'd give the podcast listeners about sales? What would you say is the thing that you say, take that, listen to that, absorb that? What do you think? No pressure.
I think it's just listen. Make it personal. The customer is the customer, and they'll go at their own pace. And if you try to force them to do something, it'll aggravate them. We're so keen to say what we want to say and talk about our features and benefits and our selling points. And actually, sometimes it doesn't matter to the customer at all, because they've seen it on your website, they've read all your reviews, and they just want to see what you've got to say. And it's about engagement, being consistent, and just listen. And I think, we've got, what is the adage? We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And there's somebody who gave me another acronym yesterday, which was STFU. And I think maybe you should understand what that means. Okay, STFU. We'll leave the podcast on that one, Chris. Let people work that one out. I think it's fairly straightforward. So listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. That's Chris Wilson from Adamo Business Consultants. Contact details will be on the end of the podcast. And thanks for sharing your insights into all things to do with driving and not reacting to business sales. Thanks, Nick. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent.